Hi, and welcome to the Kite Channel Lounge, the cybersecurity podcast, dodging the vendor sales pitches and delivering genuine insights, news, and predictions. Hopefully, we're going to have some fun on the way too. I'm your host, Stuart Nairn Clark, and today I'm joined by Kiteworks in a podcast titled Securing the Flow: How Kiteworks Protects Data in Motion and at Rest. And today I'm joined by Sam Harrison, Channel Manager EMEA, and Scott Chenery, Regional Director UK. How you doing, guys?
Well, very good. Very good. Nice trip up here.
Yeah?
With no dramas.
Ah, good. And how are you both? Is it first time in the studio for you? First podcast?
First podcast, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, certainly from a podcast point of view. Can't go back to my early acting career, but this is certainly the first podcast I've done, yeah.
Oh.
So looking forward to it.
Good. Do you listen to podcasts?
I do, yeah. I think Diary of a CEO, everyone listens to that at some point. But yeah, a couple of different ones. A few industry ones when I'm traveling, but yeah, a little bit.
How about you, Scott?
I tend to be less industry. I've only just got them into them recently. Yeah, my eldest brother's got me into a bit of Louis Theroux.
Yeah, okay.
And that type of thing. But yeah, I'm new to them.
Good. Right, so before we delve in, it's always good to get a bit of background and introduction to you guys, really. And Scott, I'm really keen to touch back on what you just said there about your early acting career, right? So, in terms of kind of the route into cybersecurity, where you find yourselves today, I guess we'll start with you because I'm really keen to learn.
I'm only going back to school plays, Fat Sam in Bugsy Malone, which is quite fitted that character quite well. So I went into an electrical apprenticeship straight from school at 16. And that involved installing pipe work and getting very messy and dirty. And then one day, a guy turned up on site in London. He had a ladder, a big, thick, chunky laptop, got up the ladder, plugged it into a circuit board and just pressed some keys. And it got my interest. I thought, I'm rolling around in dirt and bending pipes and everything like that. He's got a computer, a laptop. So he was a commissioning engineer. So I followed that route in the end and then went into software writing for building management systems. So got into the sort of the technical side of it. Then I did the normal go and travel for a bit. About 22 years old. So saw a bit of the world. And then when I got back, didn't have a job, didn't have much money because I'd spent it traveling. So got into an IT reseller. My football manager gave me a job as my first sales job at an IT reseller called Westwood Associates. Really enjoyed that. Sold a whole portfolio of different IT and security products. And then just one day had this thought, I was only young, only about 25, thought I think I could do this myself. So I set up my own IT reseller business called In Touch Services, ran that for nearly 10 years. We specialised in cybersecurity. Then it was sort of firewalls, SAN, NAS storage, etc. And then that company, I decided to get back into the corporate world. And that was kind of my first cyber job, working for a corporation. And just went from there, really, and always had an interest in cybersecurity, and then ended up at Kiteworks 4 years ago.
No Broadway, though.
No Broadway for me, I'm afraid.
Not yet.
No, not yet. There's still time.
Don't rule it out.
And how about yourself, Sam?
I think, like most people, I fell into it. I can't remember why I interviewed in the first place, but distribution is where I started, and I just like the people. I like the people, and I remember when I first joined, I was trying to figure out what's the point of the channel, what's the point of all of this? Like, why don't people just buy the software directly or buy the hardware directly? I didn't get it. But then as time went on and I started to understand it, I think like working in distribution, you see everything because you see what happens with the partners, what's happening with the projects from the customer level through the partners, what the vendors are doing, lots of different vendors, lots of different technology and markets. So I did a fairly long stint there, starting out with Computer Links. And then I decided to change tack and went and worked for a cloud provider for a little bit. But the things you talk about in the cloud world versus the security world are very different. And so I then decided to kind of pivot back and come back into cyber. So I've been with Kiteworks now for about 2.5 years.
Perfect. Well, a good introduction from both of you. And I guess if we start to take a look at Kiteworks, there's a massive challenge in our industry where we overcomplicate things. We make a lot of assumptions. So let's really take it back to basics. So what are Kiteworks doing?
At the most basic level, secure data exchange. So if sensitive data needs to move, that's what we do. At the most purest level, that's exactly what we do. And it doesn't matter what the data is, where it needs to go, whether an organization needs to share it externally or they need to take that data from another third party, we secure it.
Gotcha. Anything to add there, Scott?
Yeah, just I suppose, we have stepped more into governance as well of that data, control and visibility of data. We'll probably come on to visibility at some point. But governance of data as well, to make sure that controls are in place, to make sure that secure data or sensitive data is managed and controlled in the right way from the business perspective. Could be related to compliance and regulation, or it could just be related to good security practice.
Gotcha. And I guess if we were to look at kind of the problem or one problem that Kiteworks really solves for our partners, again, to boil it down at the highest level, what would you say that is?
I think it's difficult to pick just one because, so you have use cases, obviously. We help solve use cases. We have regulation, like Scott said, which is every industry. But then you also have things like tool consolidation as well. What we do in a single platform is typically what an organization is using like 6 tools for. An enterprise typically has 6 tools or more. So you can look at use case, you can look at regulation, you can look at cost consolidation. There's kind of lots of different angles. And you get a situation where you've got all 3, obviously. It's much, much better. But yeah, there's different angles, I'd say. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, the main problem, I think, for clients is what Sam said. They're using using disparate tools to do this. That leads to potentially security gaps. Every time you have a communication channel open, you're opening yourself up to a potential data breach. If you can put that into one platform and secure it and control it and track it, you're going to enhance your security posture and essentially just reduce the risk of a data breach. And that's really what we do for our customers. Yes, we give them a very nice, intuitive platform to use so the users like it. But ultimately, we're trying to protect our customers from ultimately having a data breach, which can cost, well into the millions.
Perfect. Yeah, that really helps set the scene. And when I was doing the kind of research before I went into it, there's a couple of stats that I'm going to call out, kind of lean on what you guys have said there. So I think the first thing was 2/3 of organizations exchange sensitive content with over 1,000 third parties, and 57% of them can't effectively track, control, or report on that external content sharing. That's huge, right?
Yeah.
And then to the piece you talked about in terms of the tool proliferation and that scale of that, again, companies using 7 or more tools, but that increases the risk of breach as well by approaching 4 times. So there's a massive problem out there, right?
Yeah, and visibility. If there is a concern or there is an incident with a piece of data, let's say, if you've got 6, 7 different tools, you've then got an IT team looking to support and view into it and look what's happened. That's increasing the amount of time it is to respond to an incident. Whereas if you could just go to one audit trail and say, search for this piece of data, what's happened to it, who's touched it, who's moved it, downloaded, updated it, etc. It helps with incident response as well.
Got it. And I guess, again, the perimeter's changed, right? So beforehand, we were all looking at people, we were looking at the applications, we were looking at the network. And I guess this perimeter has completely exploded, right? As you start to add partners, customers, suppliers, that kind of scale of the data and where it resides, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. You only got to look at, even if you just took supply chain as a component, the amount of different suppliers that an enterprise organisation is working with, and the amount of data exchanges they're doing on a daily basis. Even at Kite as a business, you are sending and receiving data on a daily basis across multiple people, across multiple channels. So yeah, it's a real problem to make sure that, you've got that visibility and control over the data flow.
Great. And I guess there's a time within the industry, there's a time in all our careers whereby there's a lot of education, a lot of evangelizing about our solution. But there's always a time as well, where regulations and the market starts to come towards us. And I certainly feel from my side, we're at kind of a point there. And one of the bits I wanted to touch on is around the pending regulation around CMMC. We've started to hear and started to talk around it, but I wonder if you guys can really, give us an introduction to CMMC, what it is, and what it really means for Kiteworks and the customers involved.
Yeah, I think we might want to tag team this, but I think regulation is it's one of those topics that, let's be honest, it's a little bit boring. No one wants to sit there and read all of the different aspects of a regulation and understand exactly what's going on with it, but it's necessary. And so, we had it with GDPR. Do you remember the big buzz around GDPR?
Yeah.
And everyone got a bit of a headache talking about that. And I feel like DORA has almost been a little bit like that as well. But CMMC is so specific. And again, to be completely honest, because it's more focused in the US, it's not something that personally has always been a priority in terms of the different regulations for me to look at, focusing more on Europe and Middle East. But as kind of time's gone on, we've actually understood that in essence, CMMC is a regulation, a framework that says in order to transact with now the DOW, the old DOD, you have to be CMMC compliant. If you aren't compliant, you'll lose your existing contracts and you can't submit new bids. And this is kind of scaled over, I think, until 2028, I think, when it kind of finally is in full enforcement. But I believe now, as part of 2.0, you can't submit new bids as well if you don't have this.
New contracts won't be awarded.
Yeah, exactly.
As of November, yeah.
So when you really look at it, why I say it's specific is the controls within CMMC. Kiteworks solves 90% of them out of the box without extensive configuration or API integration. At a very basic level, we solve the majority of the controls. And the stuff we don't solve are things like physical security and things that we just purely don't do. So when you understand how compelling that is, you understand why our US business has obviously seen a big focus on this. But then when you also start to understand just how big that supply chain is and how it touches organizations that you wouldn't consider, like transportation and sanitation and all these different businesses that, they're not the top banks that every vendor is targeting constantly. These are the sort of organizations that are not being hammered by lots of different vendors for, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Yeah. So you start to realize just how big, the scope of the regulation is, but also how big the risk is, because these organizations are dealing with sensitive government data, and you wouldn't always consider that, I think.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is, and you mentioned GDPR, is, there's been some big fines for some of the big companies, but haven't really seen it enforced to the level that we all thought it would be. CMMC is you're not going to be awarded your contract, or your contract be withdrawn. These are, and we've had a visibility of some of the data. These are multi-billion-dollar contracts with the DOW. It's for some companies that their entire revenue stream, and there's a tangible penalty that you're going to lose that contract. You won't be able to do any more business with them. So it's being taken very seriously, and certainly November was a big month in terms of 2.0. And as Sam said, by 2028, you've got to be compliant. So just to replug, up to just shy of 90% of the CMMC controls, I think it's about 110 controls, are out of the box with Kiteworks. And we've done a multitude of deployments in the US and in Europe indeed as well, where a customer or a business can become CMMC compliant very, very easily with Kiteworks.
And I think, look, it's clear that the majority of those controls are covered within Kiteworks, as we say. Is there anything specifically we can call out that has been kind of consistent where most organisations do have a gap, especially around the communication and the governance piece? Yeah,
just the way in which you will exchange data with the DOW. It's
really clear.
When you sort of said at the start, what do Kiteworks do? It is as simple as that. If you are going to share CUI data with us, you've got to do that in a CMMC compliant manner. And Kiteworks is a platform that enables you to do that. And just on the regulation point, I think as you see some of more of the high profile breaches that we've experienced, if you just look at this year, and we won't name names because we don't want to get in any trouble, but retail, transportation, some government departments as well, have had breaches where millions and millions of people's data has been breached and leaked. So I only see, and my wish would be, is that this becomes more regulated in the UK, because at the moment there's a lack of that.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of on the business to do the right thing. Whereas I think what we'll see is in the coming years is more regulation around how you handle, sensitive data.
Got it. And I guess just to close off on this, that it is a US-driven regulation, but still, UK customers, end users, and UK partners do need to be aware of this, right? This opportunity, let's say, is bleeding into the edges of the UK market, right?
100%. As Sam said, it's across all different verticals and down the supply chain as well. It could be a small business providing a small part that's fitting into the next fighter jet or something like that. There is a contract in place, and they could be supplying that to a bigger vendor or bigger company that are actually then supplying that to the DoD. So it works its way all down the supply chain. It wouldn't surprise me if there's some companies out there that don't even know that they need to be CMMC compliant, but that message will keep being broadcasted.
I think that's an important point, though, and that's the opportunity for partners, how they guide organisations through this, because there are a lot of organisations, like you say, that they probably have never heard of CMMC, but they are subject to it, and they've got now a 2-year window basically to get that figured out, and we're talking about a pretty fundamental change in terms of how they exchange data and the processes that they implement internally. So that takes time. So the kind of position for partners, we work with some partners now who are consulting around regulation itself, not just CMMC, but that's the example now. And that's a huge services opportunity for them, in addition to the software opportunity with us, and then an additional services opportunity on top of that software too. So from a partner perspective, being the kind of the trusted advisor, it's a huge opportunity. The next 2 years, there'll be a big boom around this. So you speak to any partner with business in defence, they know about CMMC.
Got it.
They're already talking about it.
Right, take note.
Yep.
So let's kind of take a look at the threat landscape in terms of those, I guess, communication methods. And the landscape's evolved hugely, right? Not just around email. So let's kind of talk around there. And one of the key areas that we've seen is the rise of the likes of a web form, etc., which inbound communication and typically are managed. But let's just talk around that.
Do you want to start that?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, you can hand that over if you want. So the platform supports all the different communication channel methods. Secure web forms. We've always had a secure web form offering. It was pretty basic. We made an acquisition of a technology that we really liked in the web form space, and that's now fully integrated into the Kiteworks platform. One of the big risks, and we've got a whole host of webinars we've been hosting recently to, again, education to the market, is around the security risk of a web form. The hackers know it. There's a backdoor into potentially to do bad things. Mm-hmm. And you go to pretty much any website now of any sort of organisation, they've probably got a web form, even if it's just a simple contact us form. But there's more advanced and more important forms that customers are putting on their website to gather data and retrieve data. So that's another channel that opens itself up to the hackers. So that's a communication channel. As I say, we made the acquisition, integrated into Kiteworks, and now all of the security that wraps itself around Kiteworks. I don't know how technical you want me to go, but our hard and virtual appliance that is essentially got a host of inbuilt security technology, an assume breach architecture, a whole host of hardening that we do, that's now wrapped into secure web forms as well. So the data's fully encrypted in transit, in rest, can be stored in Kiteworks as well. And then what we got from the acquisition is we can actually do something with that data as well. So it's not just about collecting it, we can then actually do something with the data from an operational point of view. But certainly that is another threat vector that we hope that we've tied off in the fact that we've now got these secure web forms offering. Do you know if there's anything you want to...
The only thing I'd say is, like for me personally, when I kind of started and I was learning about Kiteworks, you start thinking about all the information that an organization shares externally. So you think about legal teams exchanging contracts or exchanging sensitive information with other legal teams. You think about HR teams sharing personal information, but all sharing externally. And I didn't even really think that much about the data that's shared external to internal. But then if you think about your own personal life, every time you submit for a mortgage application or anything financial, you have to submit all of your ID, or if it's related to tax, you have to submit a huge amount of personal information that's very sensitive. And a lot of organizations are reliant on, like Scott says, unsecure web forms. And you're talking about the threat landscape changing, or risk changing. That was maybe done via email, unencrypted as well.
Yeah.
So, like, there's loads of different ways that risk is built into it. But the web form aspect, I mean, go on your bank's website. There's a form. Go on your doctor. Everything is digitized now, and everything requires you to upload some form of sensitive information, even if it's your phone number and your email address. So, yeah, there's a huge risk obviously in with that, and therefore a big opportunity for us. But as Scott said, we focus on the security aspect of it. Securing the platform first is the most important thing.
And again, that tool consolidation as well. The business doesn't have to go out and find another application to manage, to have a separate audit trail. It's just within the platform itself. So it's that platform play of supporting all the communication channels.
And we mentioned visibility. And I'm guessing all the things that we've just talked about over those few minutes in terms of kind of whether or not web forms or other vectors, is it fair to say that these organisations just have never really considered this challenge around communications, around data, and frankly haven't got visibility of it? Would that be fair to say?
I mean, you speak more with end users than I do, but my view of it would be, I think that there is definitely a challenge with visibility for sure, but I think a lot of organizations, like most people, are firefighting, so they're dealing with the biggest issues first. And I think until they've had a breach or they've had data leakage, they're maybe not necessarily looking at that. They think that they have a secure solution. We hear often of organizations using like free software, right,
yeah,
for exchanging sensitive data, and you think it's crazy. But they haven't had an issue before, so they haven't prioritized that. But I think now with things like regulation increasing, you were talking about some of the high-profile breaches recently. The thing that really dawned on me with one of those was the impact to the GDP of the UK, one of those breaches. And when you think about it like that, now everybody should be worried about these kind of topics. So, not being specific to that, but I think just the awareness is now increasing for sure. And I think that's where a tool that helps people consolidate that view is only going to make things easier and simpler for people.
Yeah, I think for me, like it'd be easy to say that every organisation, no matter what market or what vertical you operate in, that should be a consideration. But is there a particular industry or vertical that stands out, or maybe where Kiteworks have a sweet spot?
It sounds like a really generic answer, but it is literally every organisation is exchanging data, and has that problem. Yes, there are industries like, we could pinpoint the legal industry, for example, highly sensitive, highly confidential data that is being exchanged with a multitude of different third parties. So they want to secure it, they want to have visibility of it, and want to control it. But then we could skip to a manufacturer that wants to protect its intellectual property. Car manufacturer has a latest car design part, needs to share it with their supply chain. That's their intellectual property. They don't want that falling into the wrong hands. So they have a use case. And so we do get asked that question a lot. Where do you work? Financial services, a bit more regulated. But it's really every vertical Every business is exchanging data, and something I always say to our the customers I speak to, whether they're prospects or existing customers, is visibility is key. If you can't see it, then you can't control it, so you can't secure it. So visibility, having that single pane of glass of exactly knowing where my sensors data is being uploaded, downloaded, shared, etc., is really, really critical.
Great. And that's really useful, because I want to kind of turn the conversation around into what it means for the partners and how the partners can really latch on and the channel can latch on to this opportunity. But just finishing off on the vertical and the end user piece, is there a particular end user that is public we can talk about, or a user case that we can talk about how we've really helped? Because that obviously helps the channel as we go to them and try and,
absolutely, yeah,
prove the story. So yes,
yeah. So I won't mention by name, but a very, very large supermarket came to us initially through a partner, and essentially were all of their CCTV, body cam and van cam footage from the thousands of stores they've got across the UK and Ireland. They need to share that data. When there's an incident, they need to share that data with the local police services for investigation. So it could be as serious as an assault. It could just be someone bumping their car and it's been into another car in the car park. It's been caught on camera. It could be shoplifting. It could be any incident that they want the police to investigate. So they have to exchange that data. Very large data, because it's video files, and it's got PII. It's got personal identifiable information, because it's got our faces, on the video itself that we want to send. So that was taking up to 2 or 3 weeks to get that data. They were just doing Windows file shares. They had to go through IT. Didn't have the right permissions, had no visibility of who downloaded it after they sent it, had to minimize how much, that send it in packets because it couldn't handle large files. So we just came in, they share that data within minutes now, very easily, full audit trail, and also they can actually collaborate, because that's another part that we haven't touched on, is collaboration. They can collaborate with the local police service on those files as well. So that's like one use case that a single use case that we helped them with. Beauty of the platform is that when we did all the demonstrations with the partner, we went hand in hand into that opportunity. We really sold the platform. The whole idea of what we spoke about earlier is that we can support lots of different communication channels. So literally 3 months later, they had an automation project. So we do manage file transfer. So just moving data automatically, automating workflows of data, where they needed to collect all of the financial information from outside third parties, and then they need to move that data to the right person to work on. That was a completely manual task as well.
Gotcha, okay.
So taking time, no visibility, different people using different tools to drop the data to them. So how do you know what they're dropping? Has it got a payload in there? Has it got malware in there, etc.? So they came to us, and again with the partner, we implemented managed file transfer. That's now fully automated. So the person in finance just gets a little notification to say you've had a new file uploaded. They go to the folder, they work on it, and happy days. So yeah, there's if that's what you're kind of looking for, yeah, a customer that we worked very closely with the partner, and we've sold them more than one use case using the platform.
That's really good, actually, and that leads really well into the channel, Sam. So, what should partners be listening to within their customer conversation to indicate a potential Kiteworks opportunity? Because I think, as kind of Scott's alluded to there, the user cases were vast. So, again, if we were going to make it simple for partners, where should they start?
I think it can be lots of different angles. That's kind of I describe it the blessing and the curse of the platform, because there's so many different use cases, so many different verticals that we can touch on, right? But that's where the team helps to simplify it and make it very narrow with the partners that we work with. It can be something as simple as organizations are looking for a more robust solution to exchange sensitive information, sensitive data with their supply chain with another third party. It could be related to web forms. They have an issue with how secure the data is that they're ingesting from their consumer base. There's lots of different things. It could be, we had one prospect where the whole conversation was just around cost consolidation initially. It wasn't even around security or secure file sharing or MFT or any of the solutions in the platform. So, and this is why I got back into cybersecurity, because some of the use cases, Scott spoke about 2 use cases, one customer specifically, but we've got a government customer deployed on-prem, completely air-gapped, dealing with highly, highly sensitive data. Your use case was related to CCTV. We have legal departments exchanging contract-sensitive information, finance teams with invoicing. There's so many different use cases, so many different conversations you can have about it, but it all stems from a need to secure the exchanging of data. Once data needs to be in motion, that's what we do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd want to add to that.
Yeah, and again, hopefully regulation in the coming years will help that conversation. But if you look at, we had, big online bank come to us, a Google house, so using Google Drive to share highly sensitive financial information. There's no regulation saying that they can't do that. DORA, as Sam said, has not had the teeth that we thought it would have. So they came to us just because they'd done some due diligence around the security of Google Drive. And again, when it comes to where is the data, have we got full visibility? Can we control who's sending what in and out of Google Drive? They did their due diligence. They came to us again through a partner. Mm-hmm. And we have a Google Drive integration. So the user can carry on using Google Drive. But when they send that information, Kiteworks takes over, and we encrypt the data through our hardened virtual appliance, and we take care of the whole journey of that data. So there's a ton of work, and you could apply the same thing to SharePoint. There's a lot of companies at the moment that are really asking some questions of Microsoft and Google around the sovereignty of the data, the security of the data, and the visibility of the data, and who owns the data.
Yeah.
So with Kiteworks, importantly, the customer owns the data. Not even Kiteworks has access to it. It's a huge selling point for us when it comes to anyone taking data security really seriously. So they're the types of things partners could listen out for. Is things like SharePoint, people that are using Dropbox still, and tools like that for securely sharing highly confidential information. Google Drive, web forms now is really big for us. So. Keep your ear to the ground for projects like that and discussions like that.
Totally. Go on, Sam.
Sorry, just one other thing to add to that. What you're talking about is it bleeds into like data sovereignty, data residency. I think there's now much more focus on not just where is the data and can I securely share it, but who can actually access this data? Where is this data?
Yeah.
Because legislation differs country to country. And I think especially in Europe, there's a much bigger focus on data sovereignty and things like a concern around like the Cloud Act in the US, for example. But I think that's also creeping in to the UK as well now, definitely. So, it's not as strict here as it is in some countries where they insist the data has to stay in country. But in those areas, we're strong in those markets because we can deploy on-prem and the customer owns the encryption keys. So we're already in a good position to be ready for that. But I think that's already been increasing in recent years. But like you were saying, Scott, I think with regulation, it's just going to drive that even more here.
And we have customers now. We're working on a couple of, hopefully, Q4 opportunities that will close, where it used to be fine if the data was is it in Europe? Fine. Is it in Ireland? Fine. We have projects at the moment where specifically they want it in the UK. And they want to know where in the UK. From a data location point of view. So that's definitely another hot topic as well.
Cracking. And that really helps. And I guess in terms of the partner conversation, we mentioned collaboration earlier on and partners being able to position Kiteworks alongside existing portfolio. And, terms within the market such as DSPM are coming up. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to a partner and what advice would you give them? One, in terms of looking at Kiteworks more of a strategic platform versus a point product, but also Kiteworks working in collaboration with a broader vendor portfolio, which is key for partners, right?
Yeah, I think technology alliances are really important because, you know, at the end of the day, we've all been trying to sell solutions, not products, all these years, right? So I think this is exactly that. For us, I think DSPM is fair to say a very big focus. Our alliances team are very, very active on it. I had a call about it last night. So we just announced a partnership with one provider in that space. We've been working with others for a number of years, and we'll continue to grow that, definitely. The whole idea around and this is talking about unique selling points with the encryption. This is another kind of big USP for us, in that, in essence, what DSPM is doing, or part of what DSPM is doing, is it's kind of finding all the data in an organization and giving it the appropriate classifications in terms of sensitivity. And what we can do, because we don't just rely on role-based access, we can also look at ABAC. It means that, acronym attribute-based access control, that we can take that tagging information, we can take the data classification piece, and we can apply policy based on that. So going back to Scott's use case he was talking about and kind of selling the platform, you imagine a scenario where that customer is exchanging data up to a certain level of sensitivity. Their policy could state that they're okay to use secure file sharing, they're okay to use email, and users can allow download rights for that data. That works fine. But then you step above that threshold of sensitivity, and now it could trigger our digital rights management solution instead, which basically doesn't allow download, and the data never leaves Kiteworks. So there is never a version on the endpoint of the recipient. They're accessing it within the browser via a video feed, watermark, preventing screenshots, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
But applying more security around the more highly sensitive data, but still allowing that collaboration piece to happen. Whereas in the past, people have maybe relied on things like DLP to just block. So we're still enabling businesses to do what they need to do, but we're adding even more security. But all of that is, to come back to the point, driven from the tagging.
Mm-hmm.
So that policy, in essence, is kind of living and breathing. It's always up to date. And so as more data is created, more data needs to be shared from organizations to other organizations. We're staying relevant because the policy was set in the beginning. So yeah, I think DSPM data classification is definitely a big opportunity for partners to go back into that customer base and say, okay, you're good now on what you have internally, but how are you then deploying policy around external sharing? How are you taking that outside of your organization? And we easily extend that.
Yeah, I really do like the DSPM message. I think bringing in tools such as discovery tools, Siemens SOAR, and DLP, as you mentioned as well, I think that really gives the opportunity to really give a true end-to-end solution. And again, consolidation right across that tooling as well. So I think for me to finish on the partner piece, if from each of you we were going to give one reason why should a partner with Kiteworks today, just to kind of boil it down. If you're in a lift with them and there was one thing, what would you say?
For me, it's there's two. Whenever I talk about us versus competition, which I think is kind of part of this topic, there's two ways that we differentiate, and this was one thing that stuck out with me from the last sales kickoff, other than a few hangovers, which was
a few,
which was your fault, really.
Yeah.
Which was the security of our platform versus the other solutions in the market, and the breadth of our capability. So the platform offering versus point solution. They're the two ways we stand out. So if you're looking at what the most important thing for a partner is, obviously those two things are important, but I actually think the way we work is even more important. I think, going back to what I was saying about how I got started in the industry, I worked with lots of different vendors, and my opinion was always, I don't know what your experience has been, but direct touch sales teams are always in it for themselves, right? If a deal has to go direct last minute to get it done, they won't blink an eye. But when I started with Kiteworks, there was a period where there was kind of a gap in having a channel manager. So all the sales team, I'm not just saying it because you're in the room.
You are.
All of the sales team were kind of picking that up. So there's a difference between a channel salesperson and a salesperson, and Kiteworks has channel salespeople. So I like to think that I focus on simplifying things for partners, and people like Scott and the rest of the sales team do a great job of that as well. So like I said, the blessing and the curse of the platform, there's all this opportunity to look at. But I think what we do really well is boil that down to this is the message you should focus on. These are the customers you should focus on.
Yeah.
And we help kind of bring all of that together, because no one wants to do something that's difficult at the end of the day. It needs to be simple. So
how long are you in this lift for?
it's broken. It's broken.
It's a tall building.
Yeah.
It's a really tall building.
Yeah.
I'd keep it to a stat. I would turn around and say that the favourite two stats we have is we're well in the late 90s of retaining customers.
Yeah.
From a renewals perspective, but just over 70% of our customers buy more Kiteworks within the first 12 months. So for partners, that is, it's not a one deal and it's done. We work with the customer. We find those additional use cases like the supermarket I mentioned earlier. So it's a great opportunity to really land and expand and grow into considerable spend.
Yeah, what a way to finish. I mean, from my side of things, we've talked over the last few episodes in terms of one of the biggest challenges in the UK market and channel at the moment is around customer acquisition. Mm-hmm. A lot of time and effort goes in right the way from building a channel to that first customer. And I think looking at that expansion and total lifetime value of the customer, those two things are key.
Yeah.
So no, that's fantastic from our side. And I guess, just for me, working with good people as well, that really does help from a channel perspective.
Yeah.
You mentioned it, Sam, in terms of going into the channel and into distribution, the people are so important.
Yeah.
So if we're going to start to wrap up and look what the next 12 months looks like, I'd love to get you guys back, especially for an update in and around CMMC, and that's, more of a long time and time frame around that. But
probably charge this time.
Yeah,
we'll probably become at a fee.
This could be the start of your acting career.
Yeah, this could be back on there.
So if we were going to look at next year, what does it look like?
Lots of different things. I think regulation will still be a focal point. I think something we haven't talked about. In the two and a bit years that I've been in the company, we bought 5 other companies.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to change either. I think the company has an aggressive organic growth trajectory anyway, and then it's being supplemented with acquisition too. And like Scott was explaining with the web forms solution, we're then taking those solutions and putting that on top of the secure foundation we already have in the platform. So I think we'll have more of that for sure. I think the business has tripled in headcount in that time. So we're a much bigger organization now. I think that opens up new markets for us as well. The thing that I like about Kiteworks is we're thinking about what the use case might be tomorrow. We're not waiting for it to happen and then trying to chase a trend. We're looking at what real challenges are organizations having today, like the web form example. And there's many others as well that we're focused on. But yeah, I think there'll be a lot more expansion from us, a lot more upsell opportunities for our partners into existing customers through that expansion. And from the market, we'll see more regulation, we'll see more focus, there'll be more breaches, no doubt. Mm-hmm. I think that'd be the main things.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to pick up on a point though about the acquisitive side and the acquisition side, and I didn't just want to throw this in, but 25 years old, Kiteworks as well. Now, I hadn't come across the brand until our partnership, but we're not a startup, right?
No.
We've been around a long time.
And
I thought that was really important as well. There's longevity here.
Yeah, longevity. And we've something, our chief product officer, the whole platform's been built on security, not on features. We add features on top of security. There's a lot of software vendors out there that do it the other way round. They go for capability, functionality, and then they try to sort of shoehorn in the security side. So everything is built on security. That's the bread and butter of our business, is making sure that the data that our customers, give us responsibility for is absolutely secure. And then we add capability on top of that. So secure data forms, we've got email hygiene. We've just bought a company in the Netherlands where we integrate their email hygiene. I didn't realise until then that I think it's something like 54% of data leaks are a human error, not actually an attack, sending the wrong email to the wrong person or something like that. So we will integrate that in the new year as well. We've been around a long time and we keep adding capability, whether that's through acquisition or through our own innovation. as well. So next 12 months, I think next year is a year of CMMC. I think you'll see a lot of large organisations starting to really do something about that.
Yeah.
And then from a platform perspective, more capability. Certainly some more working on what we call our risk policies. So that's the governance side of the data. And more integrations, because as you say, partners like us, that whole ecosystem of how we integrate. We integrate with SIM today. We integrate with DLP. We integrate with DSPM. We integrate with Microsoft. We integrate with Google. There'll be more integrations so we can have more conversations with partners about that technology stack and that journey of that little piece of data that needs to go somewhere or come back into the organisation. What technology is touching that?
Great. Look, 2026 is going to be a fantastic year, I'm sure. Well, look, I've enjoyed having you guys into the studio, as I knew I would. So we ask all our guests, who would they like to see in your seat in the studio? So if you're going to recommend someone in or out the industry, who would it be?
That's a good question.
Do you mean celebrities or?
I'd love some celebrities.
You might be a celebrity next year.
Yeah, to be honest, actually, one of the big, one of the big DSPM vendors would be great to get an insight into their work, what they're doing around visibility of data. There's been conversations in the past with some prospective customers where, we get Kiteworks, we love Kiteworks. One of our other challenges, we don't even know what data is confidential, sensitive, highly confidential. Be good to get a flavour from them of what their customers are talking to them about visibility and data tagging and classification.
And partners as well.
Yeah.
Get some of your key partners in and hear it from them. Don't just hear it from us. We work for Kiteworks, but have a chat with them and see what they're saying that they see from their customers.
Totally agree. And I guess the last one, what question would you ask a guest in here if there was something, someone had a crystal ball to give a trend, a prediction, etc.? What question would you ask a guest?
When is the UK going to take data security seriously from a regulation perspective? Yeah.
I was going to ask when you're going to make it on Broadway. I think it's difficult because there's a lot of questions that everyone will ask, right? But I think it's what aren't people focusing on that they should be focusing on?
Yeah.
Like, where's the risk that is a growing risk related to data that a partner's seeing from their customers or another vendor's seeing is like a huge boom market for them? What don't we know? They're the things that we want to know, right?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, look, that's a great way to finish up. And once again, thanks very much for joining us in the studio. Really enjoyed having you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'll have you back soon.
Look forward
Cheers,
to it.
So for now, I've been Stuart Nairn Clark. I've been your host of the Kite Channel Lounge. You can follow our channels on YouTube and Spotify. Subscribe to make sure you get the episodes as soon as they're released, and speak to you all soon. Many thanks.